Hi, I'm here today with Amy Radin. She's an expert in innovation and marketing and author of the recently published Changemakers Playbook. And we're going to talk a little bit about influence. What is it? Why is it important? And how can you cultivate it? Amy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Great to be here with you. It's a great topic to talk about, so let's get going.
Let's get going. So, influence. How do you develop it, and what is it really all about, and how could it help you in your career?
Right. Well, the thing about influence is we are influencing every day in everything that we're doing through all aspects of our life, whether it's our personal lives, with our families, with our friends, or in our jobs. But we tend to think we're doing it, and we're not even realizing that we're doing it, right? Whenever we want to get a decision made or share a point of view and bring people over to our point of view, we're influencing. I think what happens, particularly in the work environment, is that when we get to a point where we have to influence a group of people to come over to our point of view, we somehow switch gears and we think about, how am I going to get that person to agree with me, versus what we really should be doing is saying, well, what's their point of view? What's their problem, and how can I help them?
Right. So, I think it's kind of like almost if you're going out to dinner with someone and you know that they like a couple of different types of food and you really like one of them, you can kind of just steer them towards that one, so it's one that you both like. But maybe sometimes in the business world, you don't really think of that in that mindset of how to get where you want to go using your influence.
I think in the business world, look, everybody's under a lot of pressure these days, right? We all have tough goals. We have a lot of things we have to accomplish. We're facing technology disruption, workforce issues, really aggressive goals, and we want to be successful. So we have something we want to do, and we go like, hey, I'm going to get other people to come along with me. But if you can just sort of reframe your mindset from getting people to do something to, let me understand my audience for a minute, the people who I want to bring over to my side, what do they need, and how can I connect what I'm trying to do with helping them be more successful? That's where the ability to really be an effective influencer starts, to really walk in the other person's shoes and help them succeed.
So what are, when you have that mindset of understanding what the other person needs and how to kind of get them there, what are some of the tactics and techniques you can use to kind of help support your influence?
Well, I think start by understanding what their needs are. So it's like start by setting aside what is it I'm trying to get done, and really think for a minute about, or maybe 2 minutes, about where are they? Where are they in the job? What are their goals? What are they facing? What are they up against? Okay, what is it they're trying to accomplish? This thing that I'm really trying to get done, will it help them? And then think about how you can explain it to them in terms of their success. It's like, hey, I'm working on this project, and I'm understanding that you're really trying to do X, Y, Z. Is, first of all, do I have that right? So have the conversation, and then say, what would you think about? Ask for their input and see if you can establish that connection in their minds between their success and what you're trying to accomplish.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think also a lot of times, though, we expect leaders to be influential. Sometimes, though, if you're not in that leadership position, you might not feel as though maybe you're empowered to even attempt to influence others. How would you advise someone who's maybe not at that C-suite level to kind of exert some influence in their organization?
Right. Well, first of all, having sat in the C-suite in a couple of big companies for a few years, I can tell you that when you're up there, you're really hoping that everybody on your team at every level is developing leadership skills and that they're figuring things out, right? That they're working together and building relationships, which is another aspect of influencing that's really important, is if you have good relationships with people and you have trust amongst yourselves, influence becomes a lot easier, because people believe that you have an agenda that's aligned with theirs. But you don't want to be the person in the C-suite who has to come down and kind of intervene and be the referee on problems. So let's, kind of set that notion aside, because it's really, for a C-suite member, the least good place to be. I think everybody at every level in an organization can assert leadership and be an effective influencer by demonstrating that they understand the overall goals of the business unit, the product group, the organization, whatever the management construct is, and that they are making decisions and choices and recommendations that are aligned to the greater good. I think you can do that at any level. You will really stand out and develop a reputation as being somebody who can influence effectively.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's obviously something that is expected when you get further up the ladder. So the sooner that you're able to cultivate those skills, the better. I was thinking, it's not hard to get people to do what they've always been doing, right?
Right.
So I would think that, influence is kind of most important when you're trying to get someone to make a change. Can you talk about kind of the intersection between influence and change management?
Yeah, it's really important. The thing is, I was no science student in high school, but I've been thinking a lot.
Me neither.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot recently about Newton's first law of physics, which is that an object will remain on its existing and predetermined path until there's an outstanding force that breaks the momentum and forces it to go another way. And that's kind of how people are about change. We will adhere to the status quo unless something big and forceful enough happens to change us. And so influence plays a really, really key role at the intersection of change, because things will continue on their normal path unless something happens to disrupt that path. And influence is a piece of that.
So as you're kind of taking that disruptive approach and trying to change someone's path, what are some of the ways that you can do that without being seen as kind of pushy or overly assertive, and kind of getting them? I know you talked about having someone's, having their interests and their needs in mind, but, still people don't necessarily always feel like they want to be influenced. So how would you advise people to go about doing that?
Yeah, I think if you're a really great influencer, you don't feel like you're influencing. It doesn't feel like you're being pushy. I think it starts with, as I said before, having trust relationships with your team members makes a really big difference. Certainly walking in the other person's shoes. And then I think if you are an organization that is open to testing and experimentation, testing ideas and bringing forth data to help to support the point around which you're trying to exert influence can be incredibly helpful.
So it's not just, so people are aware, it's not just your perspective or the way that you think things should be done, that there's actually a good reason.
Oh, and I think you're making a really important point there, which in my mind, the best influence happens the best, at least in the business context, when you are making it clear that you're being driven by the perspective of the clients or customers who your organization is trying to serve. So it's not your personal opinion, it's, hey, I've got a sense of what our marketplace's needs are, here's why, here's how I've done some testing and experimentation, and here's how it can align with your goals so you can be more successful.
So we've talked mainly about innovation kind of as it relates to the workplace and also a little bit in your personal lives. What about influencing in kind of a wider, broader sense? There's been a rise, since the advent of social media, of these kind of social media influencers and tastemakers who kind of are authorities on various things, even though, no one really bestowed that upon them, right? Like they kind of just developed that, built that up themselves. Do you have any thoughts on how people kind of could go about making that next step from being influential in their own organization into kind of more broadly in their field?
Yeah, I think social media influencers have a bigger platform and a very, very big megaphone, but in some ways they're not doing anything different. They just happen to have a technology platform that gives them massive broadcast capability. They are connecting with audiences with information or insights or ideas that are relevant to them and engaging them in conversation. So I guess that's another aspect of, when you think about influence from a social media perspective, the best social media influences are not just shouting, here's what I think, you should believe me. They're drawing people in and engaging them in dialogue.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Amy, thank you so much for discussing this with us today. Where can people go if they want to learn more about this topic?
Sure. Well, I'm really excited, again, as I said, about the publication of my book, The Changemakers Playbook. And if viewers want to learn more, you can visit my website, amyradin.com. And there's free content there. Download an excerpt from the book, sign up for an e-newsletter, and also an infographic summarizing the Changemaker methodology.
So everyone out there, go check out Amy online. And thank you very much for being with us today. And stay tuned for the next installment of the Human Intelligence series.